a function f(x) is defined by 2 over the square root of x. Express f(5) as a fraction with a rational denominator. So two things going on. We've got to substitute in here, and then we've got to rationalise the denominator. Now, f(x) is equal to 2 over the square root of x, and I want to work out what f(5) is. So if we compare the two of them, every time I see x, I'm putting in a 5 instead. So that becomes 2 over the square root of 5. That would be my answer. But I've got to express my answer with a rational denominator. So to get rid of a third from the denominator, I multiply top and bottom by that same third. So I multiply by root 5, I multiply by root 5. And straight across the top then, 2 times root 5 is 2 root 5s. And across the bottom, I've got root 5 times root 5, which is root 25, which is 5. So that is equal to 2/5 of root 5. Either format is correct. That's okay to write it as that. That's a kind of a tidier version of it. Sketch the graph of y is equal to x minus 3 all squared plus 1. On your sketch, show clearly the coordinates of the turning point and the point of intersection with the y-axis. Right, first thing we're going to do is we're going to work out what the turning point is. Right, so there's our equation. This bracket's got to be equal to 0, but the easiest way to do that is just to change the sign of this number here. Right, so change the sign, and i.e. that's making that bracket equal to 0. So the value for x that makes the bracket equal to 0 is 3, and for the y coordinate you read it straight down. So the turning point of this parabola is 3, 1. Right, so I've sketched down the parabola. It's got a positive x squared, so we know when the x squared term is positive, then it's feeling happy and it is a minimum turning point. Okay, it's got a smiley face. Now, that turning point we've worked out is a point 3, 1. It's just a sketch, so just mark in your important points. Now, the next point I need is this point here where it's crossing the y-axis. That's the other thing that we want to find. Now, this one here clearly does not cut the x-axis. So it's always worthwhile drawing down the parabola, putting in the turning point, and then you can check to see if it is crossing. Right, now, when does our graph cut the x-axis? Or cuts the y-axis, sorry. So it cuts the y-axis when x is equal to 0. Sometimes that could give you a full mark on a paper. Write it down, underline it. Now go to your equation and fill in x equal to 0. So the equation we know was y was equal to x minus 3 all squared plus 1. So that will be 0 minus 3 all squared plus 1, which is minus 3 squared plus 1. A negative number when squared is always positive. So 3 3s are 9, so it gives us 9 plus 1, which gives us a value of 10. So it cuts the y-axis at the point 0, 10. Now go back and fill it into your diagram. So that bit there is 10. Make sure you put in the x-axis, make sure you put in the y-axis, and your 2 points are clearly written down. Now, this is your trig identity. There are 2 trig identities that you should know. And the first one is that tan x is equal to sin x over cos x. And the other one is that sin squared x plus cos squared x is going to be equal to 1. Now, if we look at that one, that's tan squared, but that's okay because I can write that as sin squared over cos squared. Now, what about cos squared? I'd have to rearrange this formula and do lots of things. It's not going to get any simpler, and we want to simplify. So I'm going to home in this one here. So tan squared x is the same as sin squared x over cos squared x. And to that, we've got times cos squared x. Now, if you look at those two things, cos squared x is in the bottom, cos squared x is in the top, so we'll divide top and bottom by cos squared, and the answer turns out to be sin squared x. Now, these can be quite easy or they can be tricky. Write down your 2 identities on paper first. Make sure they're there, and then you can look and see what's the best one to use. And even if you can't, then substitute something and make some sort of attempt at your trig identity questions. The diagrams show a rectangle and a triangle, all measurements in centimetres. Find an expression for the area of the rectangle. So area of a rectangle, area is length times breadth. That's not going to change, you've known that for a long, long time. So, length and breadth of your rectangle, because there's two bits to it, I've got to put in brackets, so it's x plus 8 multiplied by 2x plus 1. Now, multiply out the brackets. First term there is x, multiply it by the second bracket, then move on to plus 8 times the second bracket. I'm now going to go back and fill in that second bracket with just 2x plus 1. Right, so we can now multiply that out. X times 2x is 2x squared. X times 1 is 1x. And 8 times 2x is 16x's. And 8 times 1 is 8. You will always have to tidy up the two middle terms. So 2x squared stays as it is. 1x plus 16x is plus 17x's. And we've got a plus 8 stuck at the end. Now for part B, it says, given that the area of the rectangle is equal to the area of the triangle, then we have got to show that that whole thing is equal to 0. Right, so I've got the area of the rectangle, that's there. That's the rectangle area. But I don't know what the area of the triangle is, so I have to do that first. So the area of triangle is a picture of a triangle, a half times the base times the height. Now for the half times the base, there's the base. The base is two lots of that thing. So half of that is going to be one lot. So it's going to be x plus 5. And I've got to multiply that by the height of that triangle. And the height of that triangle is 3x. Now it's easier to pull the 3x to the front and miss out your multiplication sign. And it can be written as that. So that means that the area of that triangle then is equal to 3x squared plus 15x's. Now go back to the question, given that the area of the rectangle is equal to the area of the triangle, so I've got to make those two things equal to one another. So next thing I go and do is I make them equal to one another. So area of the rectangle is 2x squared plus 17x's plus 8, and that is equal to the one we've just worked out, which is 3x squared plus 15x's. Now look to see what it's equal to. So it's x squared minus 2x minus 8. Now, I don't want to take 3x away from that side because that would give me negative x. So I'm going to take 2x's away, 2x squared away from both sides. And when I do that, I will end up with 1x squared at this side. And that's what I'm looking for. So I'm taking away the 2x squared there. Right, so 2x squared away from that leaves me 17x's plus 8. And when I take 2x squared away from that side, I'm left with x squared plus 15. Right, so next thing I want to do is, I want to get rid of this 17, so take 17x away from both sides. Take 17x away from this side as well. And that bit there should have been 15x. Okay, not 5, that's 15x. Right, so when I do that, then I end up with 8 is equal to x squared. 15x to take away 17x is minus 2x's. And now the last thing I want to do is take 8 away from both sides. So 8 comes away from that side and it leaves 0. And I've got x squared minus 2x's minus 8. So I've shown what it's equal to. But I'm going to write it round the other way. So it's 2. And that gives me what I was asked to show it equal to. Now there's another part to the question, part C, and it says we've got to find the length of the rectangle. And I've got to find the breadth of the rectangle. Now, if I shoot back up to the pictures, if I want to get the length of that, I need to know what x is. So I'm going to solve the equation that we've got here. Now, see, even if you don't answer and you don't get that part correct, you can still solve this because they gave us it. That was given there in your question, you can solve that. Now, to solve an equation like that, you factorise first and you make each bracket equal to 0. So I'm going to factorise this first. So what we're going to do is we're going to factorise this. So you get your product, which is 1 times minus 8. So we're looking for a product of minus 8. Factors of 8, ignoring the sign just now, are 1 and 8, 2 and 4. We would check 3 and something, 3 doesn't divide into it. 4 divide into it, but it would be 4 and 2, which is a repeat. So because it's negative 8, I've either got that combination, or that one, and that one. Now I'm looking for a middle term of minus 2, so those are the pair of factors that are going to give me minus 2. Now split that middle term, so x squared, that minus 2 gets split into plus 2x's minus 4x's, and I've got a minus 8 stuck at the end. Now, break it right down the middle. Highest common factor is x, it's x bracket x plus 2, and take out a common factor from here, which is minus 4. So it's minus 4, x plus 2. Remember, those brackets should always be the same. They're always identical. So I've got x minus 4, and I have got x plus 2, and that's equal to 0. So either x minus 4 equals 0, because I've got two things multiplying together to give me an answer of 0, so either that one's 0, or x plus 2 is equal to 0. So therefore x is equal to 4, or x is equal to minus 2. Now at this point we're going to look back up the triangle. I'm going to watch this one, x is minus 2. If x was minus 2, then that would be a length of 6, and that would be minus 2 times 2 is minus 4 plus 1 is minus 3. I can't get a negative length, so I can't use that value of x. Right, so that one there is not a solution, and you would say not a solution. Don't just leave it. It's not a solution. You cannot get a negative length. And that's you explaining clearly that you've thought about this and you've made a decision. Now, to find the length in the grid, we've now established that x is equal to 4. So the length of that then, the length of our rectangle is x plus 8, which is going to be 4 plus 8, which is going to be 12, and the units are in centimetres, and the breadth of the rectangle is equal to 2x's plus 1, which is equal to 2 4s are 8 plus 1, which is equal to 9 centimetres. Underline your answer, and always go back and double check